Hey there, Art 17 here, and this is your lesson for Wednesday of the first week. I want to mention and show you this is the student view on the canvas for this course, and under syllabus I put 3 documents because it's just easier to go to one place and see them. There won't be too many more other than this, so um, yeah, it's a good place to have them all. The first top one here, that has the section number in the course, that's the syllabus. If you want to look at the syllabus, and there's information on there for other services that you might be interested in um, at the college, then go ahead and take a look at that. This is very important, the Art 17 assignment schedule for fall. So let's go into that. And it's going to show, I show this all the time. I show it at the beginning of every video, but it's going to show each week's assignments. Now, this is a good thing for you to go ahead and print out, or at least have handy, so you can see where you are as we progress. All right, so and then make notations here and there, maybe on another sheet if you want to use more room. There's not a lot of room here, but you could write small. And as to whether I accepted an assignment, I didn't ask you to work on it anymore. If you send me an assignment, a completed assignment, and I say, okay, thanks, good job, and I don't say anything else, then you got a really good grade on it, and I'm not asking you to do much more to it or any more. So if I I give suggestions and I give examples, I'll pass some photos and attachments to you, and describe what I'm talking about, maybe even refer to another video to make it an improvement on whatever drawing it is. Okay, then please do that. And then when you pass it back to me and I assess it and critique it and go give you feedback, maybe I want you to do more to it, but maybe not. And then so you did get a better grade because you did do more to it. Ultimately, in any case, there'll be a better grade than the first attempt. And I asked you to work on it and you didn't, then you're getting probably a C on it. Unless it's so minimal that it doesn't even equate to a C. But mostly, usually it does, but certainly after working on it with my suggestions, sending it back, then you will get a better grade. Now, and we'll talk about that and what grade you got. It's all individual. So I'll deal with everybody on an individual basis. Yeah, it takes a little longer to do, but that's what I prefer. And so this is a good way to keep track of what you're doing, to have the schedule out somewhere where you can see and make notes on it, whether I accepted one or I asked you to work more on another, and where you're at, and keep track of it on your own, so we can keep sometimes I make mistakes now and then, okay, and we want to make sure that we're both on the same page all the time with all the assignments, and I have like 35 students, so yeah, it's a lot. Anyway, let's go back to uh, the syllabus again, and then here's principles and elements of design, which is a couple pages of lists of terms. I mean, color, line, value, shape, form, texture, mass, and then the other one, balance, symmetry. You can go through here and it'll describe what that really is. And then I talk about these throughout the term, the semester. So it's good for you to get your head around what I'm talking about, and then so when I use these words, you know what I'm talking about. I don't have to go and describe it to you. So you want to go through this and kind of get your head around what these terms are and what they mean, and then I'll be talking like that. That's art language, and we will be talking in art language. Okay. The other place is assignments. Essentially, that's all I'm going to be really using out of here is the syllabus and assignments, and make it really easy for everybody to go to a couple places and find everything. So when you click on your weekly assignment, there'll be a video posted, and then there'll be more and more and more as we go. And then you watch the video, okay? That was last Monday's video. Okay, so let's go back and look at the schedule again. And then there'll be another one today. This one right here, it will be posted. It's not on here now because I'm making it. But let's go through the schedule here. And so we're in week 1. We're now at assignment 2, which is drawing a shoe from memory and a shoe from life. Okay? As you can see, all these sort of change up. We never stay with one thing, but they build on each other because we're talking about shading now and proportion and placement of your shoe on a page. You don't want a little tiny shoe in the corner. You want the shoe to take up a good portion of your page, like a life-size shoe, as opposed to some little tiny shoe. Okay. Mostly that's what you'll be doing if it's a still life, kind of drawing it as it is, unless it's really too big to fit on your page, and you scale it down slightly. But you do want to fill the page when you're drawing any of this. You don't want a small little thing on a 11 by 14 page. All right. So the shoe from memory, of course, that's going to be a shoe that you're imagining, or a shoe that you thought of or you know of, but you're not looking at it. Okay, so you're drawing a shoe you are not looking at first, and then you're going to draw a shoe you are looking at, basically in life, or a still life, they would call it. You set that shoe up in front of you on a surface, and you have a single light source, not multiple lamps or a window and a lamp. If it's in the house and you have a lamp or a window, that's fine, but one or the other, not several light sources. And I'm going to have a video for you to watch about light and shading and why that's important with drawing, because you do want a single light source. It creates more shape in what you're drawing because there's a light side and a shadowy side. It's got more shadows because the light is coming from one direction or another, not multiple directions. And the video will explain it really well, and how to shade and what the light sources are, because there's a direct light source and then there's a reflected light that is off the surface you're on, whatever your subject is you're drawing from. There'll be reflected light off the table or around the room. So you'll learn to recognize which is which and where to put it. And then there's highlights as well. So it's going to talk all about that. There's another video that's going to talk about holding your pencil in different grips so that you can shade really well, you can draw better, and then with the tip of the pencil, now and then you can use the tip. There's certain ways and reasons why you're going to use the tip, like writing when you're drawing, but mostly it's the overhand grip, which allows you to shade more and even draw better. And it'll explain both of those. So there'll be this introduction video right here describing everything and discussing it with you, and then there'll be other demonstration videos to watch for this week and other weeks. Okay, but let me show you if you want to get examples on your own, and I'll show them now and then here, but you can go to Google Image or Bing Image. I'm going to go to Bing, and it'll show you drawings of shoes. Now what you don't want to do is draw shoes that look flat, like this or that or this, or that. They look flat because there's no shading. It's just a shoe drawn and there's no shading. Now this is a shoe, a couple shoes that have shading, or this one over here has shading. You see how there's dark and light shades to every portion of this shoe because of the way the light is hitting it. The light is hitting here and causing a highlight, a very bright area, and then back here, not so much, it gets darker. And back here where it's in the shadow, that's darker than that. It all depends on how your light hits the subject and how much it's lighting up certain places and not others. And then there's gradual transitions from light and dark tones, which are called midtones. And you have those too. Here's a perfect example of that, where it was a little dark there, then it became lighter, and then gradually got darker on the other side with a little bit of a reflected light over there, or a highlight. This all creates the shape of the shoe. Otherwise, it's going to look like a flat shoe, not have a three-dimensional appearance. Now, a lot of you may be looking at this and going, oh my God, that's really well done. Well, yes, it is. All it is putting the shading where it belongs and looking at the shoe and sketching out with a thin line the shape of the shoe, like right here going around and how this comes down and over this way, and then the shoelaces and how they go back and forth. Sketch that out without the shading right away, but with a thin line. I mean a faint line, not a heavy line. And then that's going to be able to get the proportion correct. When you're happy with the proportion and pretty accurate to what you're looking at, then you're going to go ahead and now do the shading. And the shading is all what you see. The dark and light areas to whatever. And yes, the shoe will have color, and we're working in graphite, which is grays, right? Black, white, and grays. You're going to have to determine how much gray is a red versus a blue versus a white versus a black shoe, or the parts of the black shoe that are lit up, or any color shoe that is lit up by your light source. And then you're going to add tone or take away tone by using the pressure on your pencil. If you press harder, it gets darker tones. If you press lightly, it gets lighter tones, and everything in between. And there's one video about shading will show you all of that. Excuse me. So, get a sip of coffee there. So, this is a really good shoe. Here are a couple of shoes. You can see all these examples here. Go on through here and see even more. Like, let's look at this one. So they sketched that out, and they started applying all the dark and light areas with the side of the pencil, mostly. Like a shading grip, overhand grip. Leaving, if you look at this and you count, you probably have about 7 different levels of tone. From the very lightest to the very darkest, right here. Light, dark, and everything in between. So it gets lighter and lighter, or darker and darker. All these areas, you can count how many there are. 1, this is a little lighter than that. 2, a little lighter than that. 3, that's even lighter than that area. 4, that's lighter than that. 5, and then back here 6. 6 or 7 levels of tone, and then you have your cast shadow on the table, which the video talks about as well. It's not one big black spot. There's parts of it that are darker than others. And so you look for all this in your setup when you have your shoe from life you're drawing from, and your single light source, which is best from one side or the other, not straight on it. Like if you have a light straight on it, you're not going to see all the shadow areas as much. If you have a light coming from the top left or right or the left, you're going to see shadow areas and light areas, lit up areas, and that's going to help you create a shape with your shading. And that's what you want to do, because you really want to show the shape of something rather than have it be a flat item like this or like that. Those are flat. And don't send me that. Don't send me a shoe with no shading, because I'll just ask you to start shading it. So try to attempt to shade it as best you can to give it the shape after you've made the proportion. It should fill the page relatively. Now, for this assignment, you can put 2 shoes on the same page. It'll save paper, okay? But for other assignments, I just want it to fill 1 page. But for this assignment, number 2, we can have it just be the 2 shoes, 1 from memory, which is not something you're looking at, and 1 from life. All right? Okay, on the same page. And then the homework is a drawing of choice. Now, it can be anything, but take what you've learned from assignment number 2 to draw and the videos. So we're talking about shading, we're talking about proportion, we're talking about placement on your paper. You want it to you want to look at this like if you're gonna frame it. And how's it look in a frame? You have really a tiny shoe in the middle and all this empty space. That's not going to look good. So you want it to fill the page, or at least be life size. Okay. Whatever your drawing of choice is. Of course, if you're drawing a horse, it can't be life size on your paper, but you still want that to fill the page enough, not a little tiny horse in the corner or something. Okay, so think about that. So it's your composition will be your placement. Now you could have like a horse's head coming out of the side of the picture and going into the middle, and that's a good composition because that might be interesting. But then the other side with the empty space should have some sort of landscape back there, right? So their subject matter doesn't have to be square in the middle. It could be offset, but you're going to want to fill up parts of the other empty space so that it's interesting. It's not just a horse head or a horse in a void, or an empty space floating in white paper. Okay, and that's the other part of any of this shading is if what you're looking at, your subject matter, is not white as paper, or anything you're drawing is not white as paper, then you're not going to leave it white as paper. These highlight areas, very bright areas on the shoe from the light source, are probably as white as the paper, but nothing else is, okay? And certainly not the cast shadow. So you want to observe all this. A lot of drawing is about what you're being aware of, what you're observing, how much you're taking in from that. Really study it. Really see where all the lights and darks are, how big the shoe is, what parts are thinner than the other, like the toe compared to the body and the heel. And there's a little inside part that you have to address, like or with any of these shoes. And there's the highlights, the darker light areas, the in-between midtones, and you're going to position it in a way so possibly you can see in the middle. And that's going to create your interesting proportions and content, more interesting than not being able to see in the middle, down inside. Okay, so let's leave it at that. That was shoe from memory, shoe from life, on the same page if you want, or separate, and a separate drawing of your choice. Okay, but make it with shading and proportions and fill up the page. All right, that's going to do it for now, and then we're going to talk next week. I'll have more to go through, but I suggest you print out this schedule page and take a look at the principles and elements of design and get your head around those terms. All right. So all these drawings should be sent to me sometime by next week. They don't have to be sent immediately. So by next week, if you're finishing them up, and now we're going to start week 2, that's a good way to play it. Okay, so you do have some time to work on them. Okay, if you send it in to me in the midweek, that's fine, you know. But if you're letting next week go by without finishing week 1, and now we're already in week 2 and you haven't started those, now you're starting to get in trouble zone where it's going to be difficult to catch up. All right, we'll talk with you later.